All right, good morning, everyone. It is April 11th. It's 10:45. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for being here in person. If you are watching or listening to the recording, we're also appreciative that you're tuning in to this week's edition of Lead. We have a glorious day here in Brooklyn Center. Hopefully you're out playing some spring sports today or this afternoon or even this evening. And just greatly appreciate the weather cooperating with our spring sports. You're going to hear from a number of us today in the office. Many of them you typically will hear from, but you're also going to hear from Jason Nickleby as well. Thank you to Susie and Laura also for all your work on the slides, and Laura is sharing her slides here today. Many of you we saw in St. Cloud. It's good to see so many of you on here again, and we'll talk about that, including our administrative assistants who were there in person in St. Cloud. Whether you were there in St. Cloud or not, please recognize them next week. It is Administrative Assistants Day and or week, depending on how you celebrate it. It's a month here, I think, at the Minnesota State High School League, and well deserved. I see Amy Doherty on here from our office as well, and as we're wrapping up many of our tournaments and still talking about them from the winter, we have a speech tournament next week, and those that are participating in those activities, good luck for you. And Amy, thanks for all your work in that as well. Sunday as well, on a 77-degree day, it's predicted to be, and final day of the Masters. We're also going to be celebrating our Hall of Fame in St. Paul, and congratulations to those recipients as we will gather in St. Paul at the Intercon. Our liaisons were hard at work this week, and we appreciate their input and feedback around our agenda. So here's topics that we're going to cover again this week. We'll go in depth around the coaches' contact out of season, because that has been an area where we're getting a lot of questions at this time of the year. With that being said, we're going to move forward and talk about the M&I AAA conference. And just again, we're so appreciative for the leadership within that organization and for our opportunity to be with you in St. Cloud. The weather was interesting, and for those of you that made it and some didn't, or you were on spring break or couldn't be, again, just engage with that professional organization and their leadership, right? That's a rotating group of ADs like you. And we had the opportunity on a number of topics. I'm not going to read each of them, but you can see them there. Again, great job by our staff making our presence known, also having the opportunity to present to people like yourself, and hopefully allow you to develop professionally when it comes to the Minnesota State High School League. Please note that those slides that were, those presentations were sent out last Thursday. We'll do so again this afternoon as well. So just be aware that those topics are available with those slideshows, and those will go out to you. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Eric to review and talk about our board meeting that took place last week as well. Eric?
Thanks, Bob, and good morning, everybody. As Bob was recognizing a lot of folks, I think it's important that we recognize our board of directors. This is a highly engaged, well-informed group that works really hard, not only in full board action, but also within the committees that they serve on. So appreciate their work and all of the regions that have sent us outstanding board members, part of the high school league. A couple of action items here. The 24-25 tournament calendar has now been set, and that information includes the start dates for our seasons as you're looking ahead to next year and where those are. You also see things like the last date of contests for our sections as we move ourselves into state tournaments from that point on. We are awaiting a couple of professional league calendars, so we know how our finals are going to work out in a couple sports, but we will navigate that as we move forward. In addition, the meeting dates for next year have been established. First and foremost, you should be putting area meetings on your calendar for the one that fits best for you. We're really focused on getting that requirement back to our schools and having every one of our schools have a representative at our area meetings. Along with that, there is a place where we are going to be adding in the information on Together 3.0. And the leadership group on that has come to a consensus that the value and the quality of what the statewide conference was last year was probably the preeminent part of our messaging. And so the goal is to replicate that in 4 super regional type conferences. And again, those are going to be targeted in the November to early December timeframe in 4 locations around the state. So they will not be connected in time to our area meetings, which then allows our ADs to get to the area meetings and not have to right away the next day or a day beforehand be able to bring students. That will be targeted toward that November and December timeframe. And so look for those when they come out. We anticipate those at being out in about 3 weeks or so for you to plan and get them on your calendar. Boys volleyball is ready for their emerging season right now, and they are ready to start their full interscholastic Minnesota State High School League season next year. The start date is March 17th for next year, and the state tournament is set for the week of June 9th. Have not nailed down the location and the dates in that week exactly, but this allows us to take the next step toward getting that started. In addition, we have taken all those teams that have registered this year, and they have been placed in the competitive section placement model. You will be able to soon find a listing of which schools or which teams are in which sections for next year. Reminder that next year we also have competitive section placement for all of our activities. So the placement for boys volleyball is for 1 year only, and we'll be doing the competitive section placement next spring for a 2-year cycle, just as we do all of the other sports. One more major topic that will continue to be in front of you on a regular basis as we move to the next slide is talking about 9th grade governance. And really what we're talking about is the transition of the league from a 10-12 organization to a 9-12 organization. We have a timeline that has more than the 6 items that I'm going to mention here, but it's important to know what those steps are if this is going to move forward. First step took place at our board meeting. The board of directors approved the development of a 9th grade governance task force to have lots of discussion, help in the communication, but also determining where we need to make adjustments in our bylaws, in our board policies, as well as framing up what it looks like for a member school vote. So you can see that communication is going to be the priority as we work our way through this spring, this summer, and into next fall. And you'll notice the key to this is our fall area meetings to make sure all of our schools have all the information. But we also need to communicate with our principals, our superintendents, and our school board members as well. We anticipate that our board will call for a member school vote to consider the action of adding 9th grade in one of their next 2 meetings. And so we anticipate that that vote would be likely in early October as we need time to be able to take the next steps. As we look at the next slide, this would happen after that vote. If that vote were to come up as a positive vote and our schools were in favor of it, we would then engage with the board of directors throughout the remainder of the year to take a look at all of the policies that need to be amended to make this work, as well as promoting and presenting proposals to the rep assembly for their approval in May of 25. If all of that goes as this calendar could predict, we would see that 9th grade students would be fully included in the State High School League beginning in August of 25. And that has been the message that we've received from our member schools. It's the message that we've received from our board. And so we're taking all actions we can to put the process in place so every person that has interest can be involved and engaged to know what's going on. Bob, I'm going to turn it back to you. Anything that I missed on that timeline or anything else from the board?
No, great job on that, Eric. I think what you're going to start to see is continued conversations around 9th grade governance, but also action. And just a reminder, you're going to see a timeline come into play for next year around competitive section placement again, along with district football placement. So integrate all 3 of those timelines, and you will know that next year again will be a very busy year. Pay attention to action steps around governance. Coming out of our winter season, our advisory groups have been very active for the winter season. We have a number of proposals that our board discussed last week. Want to keep you aware of those, and Charlie's going to tell us more about that process and our conversations. Charlie?
Great. Thanks, Bob, and good to be with you all this morning. And again, thanks to those that are tuning in to the recorded video of today's lead meeting. Listed on this slide are the winter activity advisory proposals that have been submitted to the board of directors for consideration. And as you can see, there are a significant, number of them for this cycle. Proposals follow the activity advisory committee process. If you're interested, you can see it on page 7 in your handbook. They typically come from the activity advisory groups themselves. On occasion, league staff or the board of directors will submit proposals as well. Due to the volume of proposals and the limited amount of time that we've got set aside for this meeting, you'll probably be relieved to know that I'm not going to go into detail on all of these. Instead, just want to take a couple of moments to remind ADs that you play an important role in the activity advisory proposal process. Your involvement assists our board of directors as they consider whether to vote to approve each of them. You may be asking yourselves, what are my responsibilities in the activity advisory process, the proposal process? First and foremost, read them and become familiar with them, and I'll come back to that in just a moment. Next, visit with your coaching staff. Understand how might these proposals impact local programming and programs that you offer in your school. And finally, present your thoughts to your region secretary or region committee. They're the ones that provide direct feedback to our board of directors as they consider whether to approve the proposals. At this time, I'd just like to turn your attention to the top of this slide. And you can see the league website click sequence that will take you to the spot on the public side of our website where current proposals are available for review at any time. From the homepage, you can click the About button, then Proposed Rule Changes. You could also use the website search function by clicking on the magnifying glass and typing in rules changes or proposed rules in the search bar. So Bob, I'm going to turn it back to you with that and pick up anything that I may have missed, and we'll continue the meeting.
No, well done. More than anything, be aware of these proposals as they come forward. You'll see them again in spring as our coaches look to propose spring sports and activities as well. One of the things we discussed with our liaisons this week and coming out of the winter season again, is we're starting to get the questions as JOs, as AAUs, as clubs, as performance centers kick into gear, and some of our coaches participate in these. What can you do and what can't you do during the school year outside of your season has been a popular conversation. We had a number of bylaw violations that the eligibility committee looked at. In fact, I believe it was 12. Some of those involved these types of behaviors. And as you're assessing and evaluating your programs and working with your coaches, how do we protect the eligibility of your student athletes? And how do you protect your coaches from dipping into areas where they shouldn't be, again, outside of their season, but during the school year? These are resources that are found on the website. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But really the conversation's about what they can do. It's pretty simple. They can provide and communicate things such as information, right? Organizational meetings, making sure that they're informed on what opportunities are available. What you can't do on the next two slides is pretty in-depth. All right. So when you think about what you can do, it's communication outside of actually directing those student athletes. And you were in the right place there, Laura. Notice how the language changes and how it directly relates to oftentimes language around 208. It's greater than just coaching. All right. And when we hear things about undue influence, note that it says we may not be able to influence our student athletes outside of the season, whether it's during the school year or not. You're not allowed to place on rosters, organize who's playing where. And again, the term influence is there. So as you communicate about summer coaching waiver period, if you have that opportunity to do so, if you're involved in an AAU program or you own or direct one of those outside entities, be very careful and very clear with your coaches. They are not to be directing or influencing those student athletes. Again, if you have someone within your program that is disgruntled, these are often things that they're going to come to you and say, how's our coach able to do this? And why does my son or daughter not have that opportunity? And has that influenced their place on the team? Again, things that they may not do on this 4-part list here. I've highlighted where we've received the most questions. And I'll be honest with you, again, it's around that organizing, supervising, directing, in that capacity. And also note when it comes to captain's practices, they do not have that role allowed to them as well. So continue to be aware of this. places where you will find this information here on the next slide. And this is one I expect that you will want to share back with your coaches or have it a part of your postseason meeting as you meet with them. I think what you'll see us doing is maybe renaming some of these resources. This is not new information. It's information that's been available to you. Maybe you just haven't had the opportunity to know where that is located. So again, a great resource as you're working with your coaches. Again, if you're hiring coaches, these are resources to say, here's a good list of what you can and cannot do outside of the season during the school year. Again, that's separate from that summer coaching waiver period as well. All right. Again, a little bit more on the eligibility side of things. We did engage with our liaisons as well on some of the participation that takes place that is really non-school competition. Jason has the opportunity to administer golf in our office. And again, those questions in large part this time of the year come from golf, tennis as well. Again, they often live within bylaw 207 or 208. Jason, talk to us about what you're hearing and what you've communicated on non-school competition for golf.
Sounds good. Thanks, Bob. Yeah, we've received a number of questions on this, and we typically do around this time of year. And just a reminder that the outside event, non-school competition language specific to golf is in the rules and policy document. That information was also shared with all golf playing school coaches and ADs back in March. And that policy in a nutshell is you get 2 outside events beyond those that are MSHSL related. And one event is 18 holes. So you get 36 holes in total, and anything beyond that would not be allowed by that policy the way that it stands now. If you are looking to seek approval for those outside events, the forms are found on the AD dashboard under eligibility resources. There is 2 forms. One is for events that are run by the USGA or the MGA. That's the governing body for golf. Those events count towards those 2 outside events allowed, but the difference is they do not count against the 16 match season limit because they are a governing body sanctioned event. For AJGA or any other entity that is not the USGA or the MGA, you would fill out the elite camp form in that case, and those count as well towards the 2 outside events, but they also count against the 16 match season limit. So that is the difference between the 2. If a golfer golfs in events beyond the 2 18-hole events, or they golf in events, outside events without completion of the form, that penalty structure is outlined in bylaw 208. So that's for participating in a non-school team or in a non-school event during the season. So that's where that language can be found. Another piece to piggyback on the slides Bob just covered, that we also get questions about events after the 4th Friday in May. If a golfer is still in the postseason, still participating in the postseason, they can play in any outside event they want, provided that as the administrator and the coach, you give them permission to do so. If they want to do it, they can. After the 4th Friday in May, they are allowed to do so because that is the definition of summer, as Bob just covered. So again, find these forms, these links on the AD dashboard under eligibility resources. The AD does need to complete these forms. The parent or the coach do not fill them out. The AD verifies the information and then submits that via that form. And then Susie and I will respond to each of those forms when they are submitted. And a final reminder, they need to be submitted 30 days before the event to be approved. So turning it back to you, Bob. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you for your work on that, Jason. And I would just reiterate, heavy on the your involvement on these forms, right? That is not just the parent filling it out or the student athlete. Protect their eligibility. And again, let's try and eliminate bylaw violations when it comes to these questions. As we move into annual requirements with Laura, I think Laura's done great work, and so have our member schools. And I think if you heard some of the statistics Eric shared at their at MNI AAA last week, we have far more accurate numbers as we look at ninth grade governance. We know what those numbers of participants look like far more than we did years ago. And that's due to your work and Laura's leadership in this area. So let's talk about some of those requirements and how they relate, Laura.
Good morning, everyone. Giving you a heads up on some things that will come your way the first week in May, but things that you may want to be working on and or having some conversations with others at this point. First week in May, you will see information coming to you that will look very similar to what it's looked like for the past 2 years. You'll be asked to complete a number of things, both in preparation of for next year and wrapping up this year. We will ask you to select those activities that you will participate in next year in Minnesota State High School League activities. So if there are some activities that you as a school are considering adding and or dropping for next year, now is the time to be working with others within your school so that you can best complete that information in May. We'll also be asking you for participation numbers for this year. We've been providing you some reminders and tools after each season, as many of you find it most efficient to do that seasonally and then report them all to us in May. But just a reminder that we will ask for the number of participants by grade in each activity by both males and females. And then we will also ask you for a compiled, non-duplicated number for all of your activities. And again, more information on the specifics of this are on your dashboard, and we will ask you for those exact numbers in May. The third thing that we'll ask you about is to prepare and submit your resolution for membership. That is a document that goes before your board of directors or your board of control and is done by your superintendent or head of school, depending on your school configuration. It does get placed on the board agenda for that group in June or July. So your piece right now would be to be working with the superintendent or head of school to make sure that gets placed on your board agenda for the summer. That is due back to our office by the end of July. So it does require that summer board meeting action. With that, Bob, I'll send it back to you to continue the meeting.
Very good. If it's not on our checklist, it should be, or your checklist. What Laura said, let's get it on the board, your board's agenda to approve for your membership for the Minnesota State High School League. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Phil, and we're nearing the end here. Phil's going to walk us through quick takes.
Thanks a lot, Bob, and good to see everyone on here. If you are an AD that has girls lacrosse as a program within your school, you received an email earlier this week about the daily limits in girls lacrosse. If you have that program in your school, you know that program switched from playing 2 halves to 4 quarters and aligns with the boys game. And so there's an editorial edit in our handbook that many times we don't get that NFHS rule until after our handbook is finalized because of lacrosse being the last sport that finishes up in the year. So simply put, the daily limit in girls lacrosse was editorially changed to the 6 quarters per day versus the 3 halves that was there under the old rules. So that is going to be in your lacrosse rules and policies, and it will also be on the electronic version of the handbook that's in your or on the MSHSL website. So be mindful of that, be communicating that. That email also went out to all of your girls lacrosse head coaches as well as those ADs. So that's there for you. Bylaw 413 in the spring, officials and umpires, things along those lines have always been a hot topic. There have been several incidences of ineligible officials used throughout the year this year. And so just bringing that up here to make sure that you as an AD are checking that you've got the properly eligible officials for your contest. Also in bylaw 413, it talks some about the required number of officials for contests. I know in the spring you talk a lot about baseball and softball and what are the minimal number of officials for it to be a valid contest. Hop into 413, check that out a little bit, and make sure that you're abiding by that bylaw for your contests there. Booster Club resources is something that the league staff is working on putting together to help ADs navigate the relationship between the Booster Club for their athletic department. So keep an eye out for something that will be developed and released here in the near future. Shooting for, I believe, and Bob, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I believe to have access to that for next school year. But the league is going to be putting together a Booster Club resources for athletic departments to have some guidelines and structure in working with their booster clubs moving forward. This should be an exciting resource for people to utilize. Summer professional development. Charlie Campbell is going to be working with the league, with other league staff to facilitate a professional development for ADs this summer that's going to be centered around Troy Erdahl's book, Chasing Influence. Details to come on this one, but you can expect to find details in May updates. And also in the May lead meeting, we'll talk some more about details, registration, timeframes, all the stuff centered around the summer professional development opportunity for ADs. And lastly on here are sports qualifying physical exams for 24-25 school year are now up and available on the MSHSL website. These are available through your dashboard and your eligibility resources. And just a reminder that they are available in 4 different languages: Somali, Hmong, Spanish, and English. So those again are in the eligibility resources that you can navigate to through your dashboard. Bob, that is it for quick takes, unless there's anything you want to add on that Booster Club resource.
Yeah, well done. I want to talk to you if you find that resource exciting. But I hope you're excited to be able to use that. I do think it'll be a great resource that has been asked for. We're going to send this checklist over to Lisa to bring us home. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Bob, and good morning, everyone. It's been nice to be on this call with you today. We know that spring is a busy time in a school, and as you ramp up in spring, we wanted to make sure we highlight some things that you should be working on this time around, making sure that those summer waivers for those coaches are getting completed on their dashboard and then approved by you so that they are able to work with their kids when it is time. Making sure that as you transition people through your schools, you're updating that information on the website to ensure that communication gets to the people that we communicate with, as well as other schools use that as a resource. As Eric mentioned prior to, all of our calendar dates should be up to date. And so make sure you're viewing that with start dates and end dates and state tournament dates on the calendar. NFHS rule books are really important to review as you are in the process of ordering uniforms and making sure you know what the expectations of a legal uniform are. We get lots of questions in our office, and that NFHS rulebook is a really important piece for you as you are working through those things. And then just reviewing that health and safety website page. It is that time of year that weather sometimes throws a wrench into our best laid plans, and making sure that you have a good plan as far as who is working with your lightning and other weather related conditions as you navigate games and activities this spring. And then finally, pitch count, ensuring that your coaches are registered with Pitch Count, which is the name of the product, and following the policy. So those are some things on your checklist as you move through spring, and I hope that you all have a great day. Bob, back to you.
Yeah, very good, Lisa. You'll be excited to hear we have one of these meetings left. Our school year is ending, nearing the end. Thursday, May 9th. Thanks again for being in attendance. Get out and enjoy this weather, and good luck to all of our student participants. Thank you.